are back in session. Teresa, I was wondering if you could begin item 19 and allow people to start connecting back onto the meeting agenda.
Will do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 19 is an information item. This is the hearing for the 2021 mid-cycle STIP guidelines. Statute requires that prior to amending the STIP guidelines, the Commission holds at least one public hearing that provides an opportunity for our stakeholders and the public to provide final comment prior to adoption. Madam Chair, staff recommends you open the hearing at this time for public comment.
Excellent. We are officially open for public comment. And Justin, are there any people waiting to speak on this item?
Madam Chair, while we wait, I can provide a brief overview of the STIP guidelines. Very short overview gives the public an opportunity to log in and be able to raise their hands and just to find them.
Excellent.
The 2021 mid-cycle STIP guidelines are specific to the Federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021 funds that will flow through the STIP. At the March Commission meeting, you approved the schedule and shared distribution for these funds. Subsequent to the March Commission meeting, staff held 2 workshops on April 16th and 19th to discuss with the stakeholders any changes and go through the process by which we intend to follow to get the funds programmed to projects. It also provided an opportunity to answer questions and add clarifications on the implementation. The guidelines are intended to provide the policies and procedures to program and allocate the funds. They provide a streamlined process and flexibility for the use of the COVID relief funds as soon as possible. The only changes from the draft presented to you in March is the allocation deadline for these funds. In order to ensure that no federal funds are lost to the state by September 2024 deadline, all projects must receive an allocation by June 2024. There are no other changes to the draft guidelines presented to you at the March Commission meeting. Madam Chair, that concludes my comments.
Yes.
Staff recommends you allow for public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. We are open again for public comment. Justin, do we have anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Chair Norton, I do not yet see any attendee looking to make public comment on the item.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to go to agenda item 20 now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Item 20 is an action item. As presented under agenda item 19, staff recommends adoption of the 2021 mid-cycle STIP guidelines as presented in attachment A. Staff recommends your approval.
Okay, as this is an action item, would anybody like to make the motion to approve the 2021 mid-cycle STIP guidelines resolution?
So moved.
Second, Commissioner Eager.
Ego.
Thank you very much. Kehoe moves. Who seconded?
Eager.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Eager. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Gordino. Commissioner Gordino, do we have you? Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Well, thank you very much. And with that, Teresa, would you begin to open the hearing for item 21?
Yes, Commissioners, item 21 is also an information item. This is the hearing for the guidelines for the Federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021, otherwise known as the CRISA program. For Commission policy, prior to adoption of guidelines, the Commission must hold at least one public hearing This provides an opportunity for stakeholders and the public to provide comment prior to approval of the guidelines. Madam Chair, staff recommends you open the hearing for public comment.
Okay, the hearing is officially open. Justin, are there any people wishing to speak on item 21?
I see no attendees indicating they wish to make public comment at this time.
Okay, Teresa, can we move to item 22?
Item 22 is an action item. As presented under agenda item 21, staff recommends adoption of the CRISA program guidelines as presented in attachment A. Staff recommends your approval.
Okay, and again, Justin, are there any people who wish to speak on item 22?
I see no public comment at this time on item 22.
Okay, I heard Commissioner Davis move the item,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kehoe. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Chairwoman Norton, really quickly before we establish time to second with comment.
Yes, I'll allow it.
Thank you. Just very quickly, just want to make sure, and I know staff is going to do everything it can to be flexible, but just ensuring that as we move forward, that we have as much flexibility as possible during this time. I am sure that a lot of the transportation agencies has probably contacted staff. I know I spoke with OCTA yesterday in my briefing with them, and just wanting to make sure that there is enough flexibility from staff and obviously the commission so that these dollars get out as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. And I think that is one of the our goals for these programs, both the STIP as well as the CRISA program, is to provide flexibility, yet at the same time accountability and transparency, so that the funds go out to the communities as soon as possible as they were intended. So, and we're always willing to work with our regional partners if there is a hiccup or a delay of some sort, so that definitely we are always available to make sure the funds go out as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino. Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move to item 23, Laura Pennebaker and Shreyas Jatker.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Item 23 is an informational presentation from the California Workforce Development Board on the High Road Construction Careers Multi-Craft Pre-Apprenticeship Program. And so with that, I will turn it over to our speaker.
Hi, good afternoon. Shreyas Jatker with the California Workforce Development Board. Sorry that I'm having some webcam issues, so I don't think you can see me, but and I can't see you, but it's good to be with you all, and thank you so much for inviting us to give an update on our SB1 funding for multi-craft pre-apprenticeship. I love talking about our High Road Construction Careers program. We've built this program over the past 5 years with pilot funding from the California Clean Energy Jobs Act, or Prop 39. But really, I love talking about this program because the participants who have gone through this have really used it to change their lives around. People who have come out of prison with little more than a conviction record now have an industry-recognized credential. Women and people of color who have historically been excluded from middle-class careers in the construction trades are now some of the best, most exemplary members of their trade union and are helping recruit more folks that look like them. And disconnected youth who were lost and alone now have the basic skills and the tools of the trade, and more importantly, they have a greater sense of purpose and self-confidence. So as you can tell, this program has had a lot of impact as we've been piloting it for the last 5 years, and really happy that we have this SB1 funding to really scale it up. And I think with that, it really positions California to leverage federal infrastructure dollars that hopefully will be coming soon to really continue scaling up this program and increasing the impact that it has across the state. So I'll go through a couple of slides here to tell you how we've implemented the SB1 funding to date and some of the results we've seen. And then I want to actually turn to talking a little bit about equity and what that means in an economic context and a workforce development context specifically, and how we actually practice that, how do we actually operationalize that. And then I'll end by talking a little bit about the other side of the labor market, and I'll just leave a little teaser for that. And we'll conclude with a short video so that you can hear from some of the workers who have gone through this program in the past. I think that's the best way to really appreciate what this program has done and can do. Next slide. So as you can see here, SB1 funds really have helped us, build this system of multi-craft pre-apprenticeship statewide. As I mentioned, we built the foundation for this with Prop 39 funds. We had 12 pilot projects in more or less the more populated areas of the state. So now we're really taking this truly statewide. So we have awarded the first 3 years of SB1 funding. We put out the awards last year, about $14 million. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, we are really taking a regional implementation approach. And if you go to our website, you can actually see the interactive map and see how we've divided up the state into different regions. So let me go through just a couple of the key features of this system that we've been building. So the first is, again, this regional approach. We have 11 regions, so we're making 11 grants that cover all 58 counties of California. The boundaries of these regions are based more or less on the local jurisdictions of the building and construction trades councils. Within each region, there's a coordinating entity to administer the grant and oversee the program, and multiple training sites within each region where the pre-apprenticeship program is actually delivered. And what I don't have here on the slide is that part of the high road approach to workforce development is all about partnership. So when we make grants, we're investing in a partnership that must include, at minimum, the local building trade council or councils, local workforce boards, and existing pre-apprenticeship programs to really deliver on the equity and job quality aspects of this. Partnerships also include community organizations, educational institutions, and of course, public agencies, including those that receive road maintenance and rehabilitation funds. The next component or feature of this system is a multi-craft approach. SB1 requires that we use the multi-craft core curriculum, or MC3. The MC3 is a groundbreaking 120-hour curriculum that was developed by the North America's Building Trade Unions, or NAB2. And program graduates earn what's called the Multi-Craft Core Curriculum Certificate. This is an industry-recognized credential that has real labor market value for workers, and it's good for employers because it helps them identify qualified candidates for registered apprenticeship in any of the nearly 24 trades and crafts. And then lastly, equity is central to this approach. We at the Workforce Board have long focused this program on serving people with barriers to employment, populations that are underrepresented in the trades workforce, and other disadvantaged populations. More specifically, SB1 specifies the priority populations to be served by the program, including women, communities of color, individuals coming out of prison or otherwise justice involved, and disconnected youth. So our grantees, we ask them to submit detailed plans how they will actually conduct the outreach and the recruitment in order to meet the participant targets. And last, I'll say that to serve this population effectively, a curriculum and a training is not enough. A range of supportive services are offered, and I'll say more about that later. And then lastly, we believe that attention must be paid to job quality and the careers that participants are connected to if we actually want to meaningfully advance economic equity. So that's a little bit about the system here that we're operating, and we'll go to the next slide to talk through a little bit of the results we've seen so far. So as you can imagine, we put out the funding last year, and then of course the pandemic came and put the brakes on implementation. There were a lot of challenges with recruitment, as you would expect. It takes more time to recruit folks since grantees couldn't organize their own events or go out to public places like job centers and churches and other places where we've had a lot of good experience with participant recruitment. On the training side, people needed time, our grantees needed more time to figure out how to take the training online or to do it outdoors or indoors somewhere where they could still allow for safe physical distancing. And to some extent, they had to reduce the class sizes for those same reasons. And then I'll also mention, those are, I think, kind of the obvious issues we came up against. What people don't talk as much about is, or enough about, is the impact that the pandemic has had on women in the workforce. A lot of women have left the workforce in the last year, and given that that has been and continues to be a very targeted focus of this program, is increasing women in the trades. That's really stymied our very targeted recruitment and outreach efforts. I will say, though, that several of our grantees are working with an organization called Tradeswomen Inc. And I know that they are doing their best to continue at this despite the challenges caused by the pandemic. At this point, all but one of the 11 regions have actually launched their training cohorts, and they've all, except one, had completed their first quarterly report to us. We're still in the process of verifying that data, so I'll be just sharing some very high-level kind of preliminary results. So we track program enrollment and completion. As you can see here on the slide, for the 5 years of funding that we have, our grantees so far have committed to graduating at least 3,000 folks. We're about 200 folks that have completed the program so far and earned the MC3 certificate. But we do expect that, of course, as the economy opens up, as society opens up again, we'll hopefully get back on track and really ramp up the recruitment and the training cohorts. We track placement outcomes. You can see here the three main placement outcomes that we track. To date, about 24 graduates have secured an apprenticeship slot, and another 35 have gone on to other forms of employment. And just to be clear, we track two types of other employment. One is non-apprenticeship employment still in the construction industry, and then there is a just catch-all of sort of other employment. So again, about 35 folks have gone on to other forms of employment so far. We don't have anything to report. We haven't seen anything in terms of folks who have decided to enroll in community college or go on to some other form of post-secondary education just yet. But that's the other placement outcome that we track. I will also say that we are tracking the demographics of our participants. If we don't collect the data, we don't really know how we're making progress in terms of equity. We are tracking, participants' race and ethnicity, gender, age, income level, and other characteristics such as, veteran status, whether they are justice involved, et cetera. But because the data is so preliminary, I didn't want to put that up here just yet. But again, these are preliminary results, high-level results. I would be more than happy to come back at the end of the year if there's interest to give a much more detailed and thorough progress report on this program. Let me end this section by saying that grantees have really done their best to adapt to these new circumstances. They've figured out things like, how to shift to online classes, which is brand new for this program. And some of the training entities like Cypress Mandela and Rising Sun, both are in the East Bay. They've used this time to really innovate and build on the basic program. Specifically, what they've done is they are offering more intensive math curriculum. And doing that is really important. It's math literacy levels is one of the biggest barriers that people face and need to overcome to get into apprenticeship generally. And this is also important because it improves the workers' chances of getting into a mechanical craft like sheet metal and plumbers and pipe fitters that have a much higher bar to entry when it comes to math literacy levels. Next slide. So as I mentioned, I want to shift gears and talk about what is equity and what does that mean in the context of economic and workforce development. Basically, what we say is, the economy generates inequality on multiple axes: race, gender, ethnicity, ability, to name just a few. And so as a result, we really support and invest in partnerships that help workers who have been marginalized or disadvantaged to close that gap. To us, equity means systematically generating greater economic opportunity and mobility for those who have been too long excluded, of course, through training and mentoring and connection to family supporting jobs. And quality jobs really means connecting or engaging with the state's high road employers to increase the creation of quality jobs and design skill answers to their shared needs. So what I wanted to show here is make 2 points. One is that, again, for training to really deliver on equity, we have to pay attention to the quality of the jobs folks are connected to. Believe it or not, that is not standard practice in workforce development. It is unique, I think, in what we are doing here. And lastly, I just wanted to, refer to this image here. Apprenticeship is the best pathway to a stable middle-class career in the building and construction trades. It is a rigorous form of employment and training, hence the motto, earn while you learn. And as you can see here, there are 2 distinct advantages to the apprenticeship pathway. One is on the placement side, and at the end, increasing skills and wages as folks gain more experience. This is what makes apprenticeship a seamless path to a good career. And of course, as folks probably know, getting into apprenticeship is challenging, especially for people with barriers to employment and underrepresented populations. And that's why we need these kinds of on-ramps like pre-apprenticeship. Next slide. So I know I'm starting to run low on time, so I'll go through this quickly here, which is, I wanted to be very clear about, how do we actually operationalize economic equity. And I'll just focus on the middle part here under curriculum and services. As mentioned, we require that folks deliver the multi-craft core curriculum. It is foundational at 120 hours. It can be stacked on over time. This is delivering equity because it exposes folks to the breadth of the trades and crafts, and it maximizes their opportunities to get into apprenticeship programs in nearly any one of the, nearly 24 different building and construction trades and crafts. And folks earn an industry-based or industry-recognized credential, which has actual labor market value. It's portable. They can take this anywhere in the country, and it still has the same value. There's a lot more to say, but I'm really running low on time, so I'm going to jump very quickly to say that, again, supportive services is absolutely key. Training alone is not enough. The supportive services have kind of 3 purposes. One is to help people complete training. The other is to gain industry-specific skills. And then third is really gaining lifelong employability skills for the long haul, or what you hear sometimes people call soft skills, but they're anything but soft skills. They're absolutely essential to worker success on the job. Very specifically, this looks like helping people, providing stipends while they're in training, providing childcare assistance. This helps them actually complete the training. When it comes to industry-specific skills and other kinds of prerequisites, we help people clear their old traffic violations so that they have a clean driver's license record. I mean, having reliable transportation is essential in the construction industry. And then when it comes to these lifelong employability skills, it's things like trauma-informed care, which are especially important for folks who are coming out of the foster care system or coming out of prison and incarceration. These are just some of the examples. And to do any one of the things that you see here on the slide, this whole program, the key to it is really partnership. As I mentioned, the building trade councils, community groups, workforce boards, educational entities, local government. We fund these partnerships that are coming together for the collective well-being of the region. And each of them has a unique role and contribution to make all of this work. Next slide. So I want to be clear, this is, I think, actually the most important point to get across. It's not that we won't accept more funding for pre-apprenticeship. We will always take more funding, but that's not actually the biggest obstacle to expanding access to good jobs in the construction trades. If if that is our interest, which I know it is from reading SB1 and watching those hearings years ago, it is actually the demand for apprentices that is key. Too often, and really conventional workforce development operates with one hand behind its back. It focuses on the supply side of the labor market, where we think about workers and the institutions that educate and train them. And all that is essentially a push mechanism that, you know, basically pushes people into labor markets and hope they attach. It's what some people call a train and pray model of workforce development. And by contrast, the high road approach is really paying attention to the demand side of the labor market, where we think about jobs and the employers that provide them. And this is really a complement to the training, which is pushing people into labor markets. The kinds of measures like project labor agreements, community workforce agreements, these actually pull people into good jobs. And it again is really a necessary complement. You know, apprenticeship is not like community college, right? You can't just apply and get in. It's based on actual demand for work and demand for apprentices. And so with that in mind, we are starting to ask grantees to actually report on their efforts and the outcomes to expand these kinds of demand side measures that are much needed. And we're actually seeing quite a bit of progress on that throughout the state. Separate but related to this, we at the Workforce Board are working with a number of state agencies, our sister agencies, to help them integrate these kinds of job quality and job access measures in their climate change funding programs, so that we can better ensure the kind of equitable labor market outcomes that we desire as we move towards this carbon neutral economy. And so I think my point here is really for the CTC, for our state transportation agencies, that labor standards, making sure we have, you know, strong, clear demand for apprentices, that is essential. That is a role that you get to play when you are making these kinds of investments in our transportation infrastructure. And that's what's going to actually really make a big difference. I would say the biggest difference, really, again, to expanding access to quality careers in construction. I will end it there. If you can jump to the last slide, so folks can, well, we'll show the video in a second. If you could just go ahead to the last slide, in case folks want my contact info. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions here. But maybe I'll end it with that and just ask if we can still show the video. And I know I've taken up quite a bit of time here, so if we want to just show the 2-minute clip, that's fine. So maybe Doug, if I'll cue you up to show the video. And this video is about the High Road Construction Careers, our pre-apprenticeship program in the Sacramento region. And I think this video, first of all, shows the participants who have gone through it, who get to speak directly. You can hear directly from the impact that this has had in their lives. And really, it also kind of tells the story of the entire program. So I think it does that all in 5 minutes here, if we can show that video.
We have so many projects going on in Sacramento right now.
We're probably in construction with about $4 billion of work right now.
We are in the midst of building 3 buildings that represent about 1.5 million square feet of office space. The Judicial Council is building a new courthouse, and the legislature is building a new annex to the state capitol.
We're building a new convention center, refurbishing our theater, a new science center on the water, new bridges, new infrastructure, and we want to do it right so the money that comes from our community can go back into our community.
Project labor agreements allows us to directly reach out to communities that have not been represented.
The statewide PLA says that total hours of any project, 20% needs to be apprenticeable hours, and of that 20%, 25% has to come from 5 targeted groups: veterans, women, justice involved, youth emancipated, ex-offenders, those on public assistance, those that need help.
So we're actually seeing, working with the trades, with the pre-apprenticeship programs and the apprenticeship programs, people moving into the pipeline, getting good paying jobs, being productive members of the workforce, and helping us build the buildings that we need to be built.
The construction industry is an equal opportunity employer. If you want a career, then we're saying, come on.
And it's our job to go out and reach into those communities and give kids an opportunity that really don't know about us. We gotta reflect the workforce of California.
The construction trades needs more people of color, women, ex-offenders, various groups that have been underrepresented. I'm in one of those groups and honored to be here.
They may have had some troubled times in the past, but they can overcome these things and they have supportive services that are helping you through.
For me, it means that no matter what I look like or what I've done in the past, that I still have the fair opportunity to be successful.
The goal for the apprenticeship is for people to eventually enter into state apprenticeships.
The MC3 is a component that exposes a population of people to the building trades. It is all about apprenticeship readiness.
The boot camps are, I would say, probably one of the most critical things that we do because it gives the basis and the basics to young people of what they need to carry into the apprenticeship program.
Some of it is like soft skills, you know, how to interview, what to wear, and just the general skills that will help us in society, not just in a job.
I've learned to have a can-do attitude. I can do it, just don't have the attitude of, you know, oh, it's unreachable. Everything is reachable.
One of the key things to me, honestly, would be the OSHA safety class, just being safe on the job site.
Mathematics on Friday, you know, workout on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So there's set programs for us to be able to maintain and help us understand what we're about to get ourselves into.
About working hard, being on time, you know, and being committed.
And we've been learning a lot about the different trades that we can go into to really put us on the right path for a good career for ourselves.
We are going to make certain that we hand off at the end of the day to our contractor a highly skilled person to work for them.
6 months ago, I was in a recovery home. I had some prior issues with substance abuse, 15 years, and I was rescued.
I have been another half of 17 years in and out of incarceration. This program has definitely helped me understand that I'm good at something and I'm going to be able to achieve it and maintain it this time because it's not an option for me.
Today is MC3 graduation.
When we get to this celebration, and that's what it is, we get to see families because it helps restore broken relationships. It makes it so rewarding.
I'm kind of ecstatic because, you know, Justice of all, you don't really get to do too many graduations.
I haven't really accomplished a lot or finished anything that I've really started. So just for me to do this and to have my family come and we put it on the big ceremony, it makes me look forward to what's to come.
And it's union, it's career. That's very appealing to me, and that's something that's worth putting in the time and effort.
Sheet metal, August 1st, he's gone.
That following Monday, I went to the sheet metal training center because I chose sheet metal as my craft, Local 104. From there, the following week, I interviewed with Airco Mechanical. Airco called me about 2 hours later, said, "You have the job." I actually shed some tears. It was a very joyous moment for me.
This is just really rewarding for me to see people developing their skills and moving on to jobs.
Sacramento for a long time suffered from a lack of investment, and our city is on the rise. The workforce that we're building can help build the rest of the city, not only for this generation, but also for the next.
PWT helped to mold my mind to be more mentally prepared for the trades and the crafts that I'm working in. I prepared for the worst and have had nothing but an amazing and excellent experience.
Work. We have a number of people who are going to speak, and very first is Commissioner Davis, and this is a big passion of his.
Thank you, Chairwoman Norton, for the opportunity to speak on this. And Shreyas, I just want to compliment you on the program that you all have put together. you really have found the broken connection for most workforce development, which is placement with employers. A lot of people get pre-apprentice training, get trained, but then have no tie in an industry to a job. And then these programs tend to be sort of another government or state program that just disappoints people who have been disappointed by government service previously. And so I want to commend you for what you're doing. You mentioned earlier about math literacy, and what I've seen sort of historically in some of these programs is that the opt-out or the cop-out is, well, we'd like to work them through the program, but folks just can't learn the math, or they just can't get there. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that you're offering this support service and assistance to help people continue to work their way through the program. And I realize that you're going from crawling to walking and then running here with this program and the way it's funded. But what I'd like you to be able to hopefully track for us as the commission is that placement's great, but come back to us and talk to us about folks that have actually come through and graduated through these programs. I mean, I think that's the end of the story, where then we do have a good middle class, life-sustaining employment and job with a skill set that you, as you mentioned, can take anywhere in the country and go find a job and go to work with the skills that you learn. And make a plug for union agreements. And union agreements, you don't get paid the wage you get paid based on your sex or the color of your skin. You get paid based on your skill sets. So, you know, a journeyman laborer, a journeyman carpenter, a journeyman operating engineer, regardless of who they are, makes that journey person's money. And union agreements level the playing field for economic equity for an entire workforce. And I just hope that you can come back in a couple of years and talk about not only have you got 3,000 people through the pre-apprentice program, but you've got 3,000 people who are now graduate apprentices with that journey person's card in their back pocket. So commend you for the work you're doing, and a very, very good presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. And thank you, Shreyas. This is a very moving presentation. And I want to specifically highlight something that you said, which is very pressing on many of our minds, and that is the number of women who left the workforce due to COVID-19. And whether or not, as you're talking about the ability to take some of these classes on, you know, different hours because you can do it by video, how you have made it available to women who are now needing to change their work schedules or have to work around school being intermittent as we're coming back from COVID-19, how you're addressing the opportunities to start upskilling while preparing for the ability to go back to a full-time job in the future.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, you know, get some more details on that from our program staff and the grantees. And, you know, as mentioned before, the partnership, or the inclusion in the partnerships, I should say, with Tradeswomen Inc. It has, you know, in our pilot phase from several years ago, proved really essential. And I think that they've been really critical to making sure that folks are adapting to this situation we're in now. So I wish I had more specific examples to offer, but I'd be happy to look into that and come back with some more info for you.
I'd be very, very interested in that. Thank you very much. Commissioner Liu, I see your video on, and I'll see you, Carl, Commissioner Gardino, if you'd like to speak on this item. Commissioner Liu?
Sure, thank you. Shreyas, your knowledge and enthusiasm of this program really, you know, is apparent from your presentation. I wonder, you know, your own job there at California Workforce Development Board, how are you liking it?
You know, I really wish I was on camera, because this was like, that's the perfect cue to be taking a sip from my Coalition of Clean Air water bottle.
There is another question I wanted to ask you, and there's a right and wrong answer to it. And that one's, what's the best job you ever had?
Oh, well, if you're using past tense, then certainly at the Coalition for Clean Air.
Then you got the answer right. Shreyas used to work for me a few years back before he got this wonderful job that landed square in his interest area. And it's just so nice for me to be able to hear this update on the work that he's been doing and the really important work that you're doing. And I didn't mind the long presentation because we haven't really heard this information before. And it was really helpful. So thank you, Shreyas, and thank you for saying the Coalition for Clean Air was the best job you've ever had.
Well, I really do mean that, because one of my main takeaway from that experience, which I've taken into this job, is it's not enough to talk about the why, and you still have to talk about the why, like why something matters, why we should be encouraging somebody to do something. What we also really need is to focus on the how. You know, there's a lot of talk about equity. It means a lot of things to different people, and the experience I had at CCA that I continue to carry here is really thinking hard about how do we actually put this stuff into practice and make it real. Otherwise, it's kind of a lot of talk.
Thank you, Shreyas, and thank you for what you're doing nowadays.
And actually, if I could just step in real quick, I apologize if this is inappropriate, but I wanted to just comment with Commissioner Davis's remarks that we are beginning to track individual apprenticeship placements, and we are hoping to get more granular data so that we can actually do that kind of longitudinal data collection so that we track them, not just which apprenticeship program did they get into, but we will connect with our colleagues at the Division of Apprenticeship Standards and have a way to track those individuals through apprenticeship to know whether they've gone on to become a journey level worker in their craft. So we're still working out the sort of technological issues of connecting two different data systems. And I hate to be so bureaucratic about that, but that it really comes down to that. So I hope that we will be able to resolve that because that is really important to be able to tell that story that that these folks have gone on to not just getting an apprenticeship slot, but actually becoming a journey level worker in their craft.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Finally, I wanted to ask you about, some questions about just the workforce pipeline. And this is about to be the decade of infrastructure. And yet the question is, how many people are retiring? We know with some utilities in LA County and others, there are a lot of people that are due to retire, and they really do need this pipeline of apprentices. Are you flagging certain areas or industries that we really need to be concentrating on apprenticeship program and additional investment?
Yes and no. So on the positive side, if you will, my full-time job here is really I'm kind of like more of a support role for this high road construction careers program. It's just that I've been doing this for long enough that I get tapped to do these kinds of presentations. But my main work is really working with the Public Utilities Commission, the Energy Commission, the Air Resources Board, those agencies that are investing billions of dollars every year in clean energy and clean transportation, and helping them figure out how they address not just workforce development, but also, again, really ensuring that there are quality jobs and access to those quality jobs to really can create that kind of pipeline. So, with that, we are very focused, if you will, in the energy and transportation sectors. We are getting lots of calls from other agencies and natural resources and, Department of Toxic Substances Control and brownfield remediation. So we continue to see a lot of increased interest in this kind of high road approach to economic and workforce development. And at the same time, I want to say that this system of pre-apprenticeship that we're building is actually trying to be a little bit agnostic about the segments of the construction industry. As pre-apprenticeship, it's such foundational training that we don't want to, we're not trying to, because we have SB1 funding, we're doing this and it's just about transportation infrastructure, or previously we had funding from the Clean Energy Jobs Act, so it was about clean energy. It's like, let's get these folks into apprenticeship, and from there they're dispatched to any number of these projects. And that way we're creating a career opportunity for folks rather than something that's a little too niche. This is the problem that we saw with the Stimulus Act a decade ago that invested tons of money in green jobs training, that the demand wasn't there, right? So when you're in apprenticeship, you just go where the demand is. There's a system in place to do that kind of dispatch. And then it's good for the industry, right? Because we're not just trying to serve, because we have this pot of money, we're just trying to serve these employers or this pot and those employers. But again, really a sort of systematic approach. I will say that just one more thing on the climate side of things, the multi-craft core curriculum has had an elective for a number of years called the Green Construction Module. We've decided that here in California, if you're taking our money to do pre-apprenticeship, that Green Construction Module is a requirement. It's not an elective. And the National Building Trades Unions have made that clear on their website that, if you're doing this in California, know that this is how the state board is doing it, because we do want the folks that come through pre-apprenticeship to have, again, a basic understanding of really the many different changes throughout the economy to address climate pollution. And the building trades are going to be involved in any number of these different types of projects, whether it's building high-speed rail, installing utility-scale solar and wind projects, building electrification, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to give it a little bit of that green tinge, while again making sure that we really are taking this sort of whole system approach to training and development.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call next on Douglas Remedios.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to recognize the fact that we got word through chat and questions from several people that the video froze on them. And so I wanted to let them know we'll put a link on our website so folks can see it if they weren't able to watch the whole thing during the meeting.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, with that, I think we do not have any public comment. That's correct, Justin? So
that is correct, Chair Norton.
Great. So with that, we want to thank you very much for this wonderful presentation and discussion, and move on to item 25, the Caltrans Active Transportation Plans. Bridget?
Yes, thank you, Chair Norton. Commissioners, tab 25 is an informational item. Marlon Flournoy, Caltrans Division Chief for Transportation Planning, will present an update on Caltrans Active Transportation Plans. These plans are being developed for each Caltrans district, and all 12 plans will be completed by September 2022. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marlon.
Great, really appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to see you all, Chair Norton, Vice Chair Alvarado, and the rest of the commissioners. I'm pleased to talk to you about our Caltrans Active Transportation Plans, and I'll be referring to them as CAT plans. That's how we refer to them within Caltrans. And during my presentation, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to be focusing just on a few key areas, just providing a bit on the background. I definitely want to talk about the schedule, because I'm guessing you all are interested in when we can get these plans completed and delivered. I do want to spend a second talking about some of the engagement activities that are informing the work. And then for me, a real passion point is implementation and how this is actually informing funding and project delivery. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm more than happy to take questions during or after the presentation. Next slide. All right, so part of the CAT plans, really goes towards the implementation of Toward an Active California, which is our statewide bike and pedestrian plan. And that really lays out the policy framework in terms of how the Caltrans is moving forward with bike and ped. And one of the key things is that the Toward an Active California really calls for district plans that are basically implementation focused. And so that's really what these CAT plans are centered around. Really inherent in the process is safety, mobility, preservation, and social equity. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few seconds. But in short, the CAT plans do create district level plans that identify and evaluate location-based needs on or near the state highway system. And so the needs that we're identifying will be going towards our planning efforts and constructing projects that improve bicycle and pedestrian mobility. The CAT plans do include an analysis of both bike and ped network locations that have deficiencies and gaps in the system. And so in terms of deficiencies, we're looking more at asset conditions of existing facilities. So this can be sidewalks, bicycle paths, crosswalks, and then also looking at new facilities. And so these would be filling in the gaps in the network. Throughout the process of developing these plans, there is an emphasis on social equity and strengthening and reconnecting communities by identifying active transportation location-based needs. Next slide. So this is our schedule. So basically between now and September 22nd, September 2022, we're going to be working to deliver these plans. You can see District 4 in our San Francisco Bay Area region. That plan was completed in April. I just wanted to make note that there are some logistical issues that we are working through to make sure that we can release this publicly. So just wanted to recognize that. But we are in the midst of wrapping up our District 5 plan, which is in the Central Coast. And we have Districts 10, 9, 1 through 3 that are currently in development. And happy to say that we just kicked off our plans in District 7, which is in the LA Ventura area, in District 12 in Orange County. And so we are well underway with developing these plans with the hope of getting them all completed by September 2022. One key thing that I did want to mention is that, one really big aspect of the CAT plans is to inform the State Highway System Management Plan targets that we have identified. And so basically by the beginning of 2022, we're going to have all the location needs identified that's going to help inform that process. And so that's a really big milestone for us to hit. And we're very, very sensitive towards that. Next slide. Now, I just wanted to talk just a minute in terms of what each of the CAT plans will be delivering. And so each of the districts is going to be getting the following in regards to their deliverables. At the heart of the plans are the location-based needs. And so these are going to be delivered and will be informing all the map data. We have story maps, which will be complementing the narrative document. And these story maps will be providing visuals. As well as the Explorer maps will contain all the data and will allow users to view specific areas of interest. And it will also incorporate local network and regional data sources as well. As the needs are identified, there will be a toolkit that we'll have to identify potential treatments to help turn needs into actual projects. And all the data sources for the GIS will be available and delivered to the Caltrans districts, and we'll be leveraging that for data analysis. One of the things that I really wanted to point out is that when you look at how diverse the state is, we have 12 Caltrans districts. Some are covering urban areas, some are covering rural, some are covering a combination of both. And with the diversity of different communities that we have across the state, we have built flexibility into the process to make sure that the plans that are actually delivered aren't necessarily cookie cutter, but they are actually, addressing the critical needs across the state. So I just want to recognize that. Next slide. Now, at the heart of the CAT plans is really about our engagement effort. And so I did want to recognize that our Caltrans districts are doing a wonderful job at taking the lead on the engagement efforts. We have leveraged our planning public engagement contractor to help us develop materials and templates that would address equity in our work and making sure that we have all the materials to be able to facilitate that process. What you see is sort of this target kind of with the bullseye. So it is a multi-tiered approach in terms of how we're looking at the engagement. And so at the center of it is really about the internal partnerships within Caltrans. And so each district will assemble a multifunctional team to develop the Caltrans active transportation plans. And this is really vital towards implementation. We need to make sure that we have all the right folks at the table to inform, asset management and project development and traffic operations and all those things. So in the second tier really is one of the important pieces, and that's really the local partnership piece. And so we have local and regional agencies, advocacy groups, community-based organizations that are participating in this process, with really the focus being communication and building consensus on the plans. And one of the things that we're really proud is we have a map-based survey tool where our partners are able to input data on different needs that they have identified. And so that really gets baked into our process. And then the third layer is the public, is a general public tier. And so we, through outreach events in disadvantaged communities, through our map-based survey tool, we are engaging these communities and collecting information from them with really a focus on sharing information and listening to their concerns. And one of the nice things is that in order to make our tool more accessible, we have translated into Spanish, and it is web compliance. And so it does make it more accessible, and it's available via our desktop, through our phone app and tablet. So we have really tried to make the tool accessible to the broader public. Next slide. So a lot going on in this slide, but I'll just say a couple of things here. So on the top are the different phases of the CAP plans. And so we have the data consolidation, which really does bring multiple different data sources to create the location-based needs. And so, we're bringing information from the local and regional plans, our existing data sources. And so it really is the sort of the first step to set the stage. We're collecting existing condition data. And so we have our active transportation asset inventory, which holds all of the conditions for bikes, for bikeways, walkways, and sidewalks. And through this effort, we've collected about 26,000 assets across the state, which our staff had helped us pull together. For the gaps and barriers, so the data that we collect from our partner agencies are inputted into the survey tool, and that includes the general public. And we are partnering with them to identify gaps in the system, and also how to make those connections to the local transportation networks. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the survey tool does allow that information, and we are looking at the state highway system and within a quarter mile of the state highway system to make those connections. And then as far as prioritizing needs, we are leveraging the Toward an Active California plan to do that. And so as I mentioned previously, safety, social equity, mobility, and preservation, those are going to be utilized to help prioritize the different needs that are collected. And the measures will be using measures associated with those areas to help prioritize those needs. And then as far as prioritizing needs, that really does get to the implementation. And so that's where you see the highlighted box there. And so if you look a little bit further down, you can see that the CAP plans are going to be informing our planning, our project initiation, and our investment planning and programming. And so these are projects, that might be going through competitive programs. And so from a planning perspective, we want to make sure that we're integrating this into as many areas as we can. So into our quarter planning process, we have something that's called our monster list. This is basically a statewide list of projects that fall outside of the shop, but that do come from the different plans that we develop across the state. We have our Giant tool, which is a comprehensive planning, system planning tool that allows us to do some data analysis. But also when we're analyzing local development review through the CEQA process, we can utilize the CAP plans to help identify potential mitigation for SB 743 purposes. And then as far as project initiation goes, you know, when we kick off a project, you know, we want to make sure that we have good information to help us develop the scopes of each of the projects. And so having information on different needs. So as an example, if we're developing a shop project and we've identified a need within the vicinity of the shop project, you know, that gives us some flexibility to see if there's a way that we can address that need through the shop project. And then ultimately make sure that you know, we're making that assessment, and also working with our asset management team. All right, next slide. So that is, in a nutshell, what we're doing on the Caltrans active transportation plans, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. I have some questions. And I know I'm just going to check. Do we have any public comment on this item, Justin?
There's no public comment at this time.
Okay. And I'll wait until I get signals from my other commissioners about whether they wish to speak on this. But I had two questions. One was about how you're defining all the right folks at the table, because I think we found in the CapDI process that there were people who felt that they had not been informed until quite the end. And given that we are going to be asking developers and business owners and others to be paying for and building in active transportation projects, I was just wondering how you're reaching out to the development community and business owners as you look at these plans.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So, you know, depending on where you are in the state, you know, things can be, you know, quite different, right? How we engage, you know, people maybe in the North Coast might be a little bit different than how we're working in LA. You know, but through some of the tools that we're developing, you know, I think there are pieces in there that really sort of allow us to think through who all needs to be involved. And you know, I think part of it is, you know, when we are, you know, working with our regional partners, when we're working with advocacy groups, through that communication, I think it's important to make sure that, you know, they may also have ideas in terms of how to reach other people. We are prioritizing working with community-based organizations, just because, you know, for us, establishing trust within the communities is really important, and working with the folks that actually have the relationships with the communities is really important. And so we are actually trying to do a better job with that. So it is an ongoing process, but I feel very confident that we are reaching out to the right folks. But you know, but if there's anything that you hear, I'm more than happy to start working with our districts to ensure, you know, that they are circling back around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just also wanted to ask you about metrics, because we keep asking about bike ped metrics, especially as we're looking at vehicle miles traveled reduction strategies. How are you going to be looking at these like libraries of the opportunities to understand which is the best way of helping people to travel through active transportation, and where are the actual miles being traveled by bike or walking? Because we keep asking about where is that data so we can, you know, many of us are walking and biking more after the pandemic. How do we make sure that those are counted towards our own clean air goals for cleaner mobility?
Yeah, another excellent question. Thank you. So there are a couple of things that we're looking at. We are evaluating big data, and to be able to bring that in, because, you know, as you already know, trying to collect bike and ped data, you know, is a big concern, because we don't necessarily have like monitoring sites that are, you know, located in all of the different types of facilities. And so we are actively trying to find ways to get at some of that data. So there are some vendors that we've been working with really the goal of trying to get that information. And some of our districts are actually doing some interesting work, around collecting more information. And so, I think really the key is how to make it scale up. California is a big state and collecting all that data, but we do see some promise with some of the big data providers, and we'll actually be establishing a data work group, a big data work group with the regions and different state partners to evaluate and see how we can all actually work together. Because I know that a lot of regions are actually doing a great job in collecting different data, and we want to make sure that we're all on the same page and just working together.
That's wonderful. Commissioners, do any of you have any other questions? Well, I want to thank you for an excellent report, and we're really looking forward to hearing your progress. And thank you for how in-depth you are going in community groups and to looking at, especially after COVID-19, biking and walking is going to be a lifeline mobility option. And so we just thank you for your investment in active transportation and look forward to working with you on this plan.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to move to item 26, SB1 Research Program Update. And Bridget, we get to have you one more time. That's great.
Yeah, happy to introduce this next item. So tab 26 is an informational item. Dr. Karen Philbrick, Executive Director of the Monterey Transportation Institute at San Jose State University, will present an update on the California State University Senate Bill 1 research program. SB1 provides funding annually to transportation-related research, workforce education, training, and development. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Philbrick.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for the warm invitation to present today. Commissioners, it's an absolute privilege. So let me just get right into it. May I ask that you forward to slide 2, please? Thank you. So I lead the Monterey Transportation Institute, which is an organized research and training unit that's part of the College of Business at San Jose State University. As many of you may know, San Jose State is a minority-serving institution with a Hispanic-serving population, as well as an Asian American Pacific Islander population. We're very pleased of the work we do, and we were selected competitively to lead the California State University Transportation Consortium. This unifies and focuses the outstanding efforts of our faculty and staff who work on transportation and workforce development efforts. We are funded, as you may know, through the California State University Chancellor's Office via Senate Bill 1. Now, unlike our UC partners, our chancellor had a competition open to all 23 campuses to respond with a proposal on their vision on leading this effort. And MTI was very pleased to be unanimously selected. As we enter our 4th year of engagement, I'll be sharing some statistics and details about the impact that our research has had. So let's get right to it. As you can see, our mission is to improve the mobility of people and goods, and we accomplish this through surface transportation research, technology transfer, education, and workforce development initiatives. Now, we have taken a two-pronged approach to how we manage our research portfolio. First, we have named partners at UC Chico, Fresno, and Long Beach, each of whom specialize in a different area of transportation. Each receive a dedicated amount of funding to be used on their campus for research that aligns with Senate Bill 1 priorities. The second approach is annually we issue a competitive request for proposals to all 23 campuses, whereby any faculty or staff can respond with a proposal for consideration. I'll describe that a bit next. If we can move on to slide 3, please. Thank you. In terms of that CSU-wide request for proposals, it's open to all staff, but what we know is that it's critically important that the research we do can be implemented and will affect change. Therefore, we don't engage in projects we think just sound interesting. We actively go out and engage with our key stakeholders to submit research needs statements. So for example, we'll work with the California Transportation Commission, Caltrans, transit agency CEOs, elected officials, CalSTA, and others. They submit those research needs. We take a quick look in the Transportation Research Board's document of research in progress to ensure no duplication. Incidentally, if we do find that there's a project that has looked at that same topic, we prepare a briefing memo for the stakeholders who submitted the need to ensure we close that loop. We put together this annual RFP. People are free to submit their own ideas or to submit in response to a specific need. Those who do submit in response to a research need receive just a bit of an extra incentive, if you will, a 10% increase on their final funding scores. So this process allows us to do research with impact that has implementable results. So to date, in our first year, to give you context, we received 84 proposals and we had funding for approximately 10 new projects. So as we thought about that, we realized that it was critically important to ensure transparency and objectivity in research project selection. So to that end, not using anyone from within the CSU system, we engaged subject matter experts who rank order the proposals that were submitted. Those scores are then elevated to a final review panel for final project selection. To date, 13 of the 23 campuses have been engaged in the research portfolio using this process I just described. Our research is multidisciplinary in nature, and it's vibrant, applied program that engages the whole system and provides valuable, practical, and implementable research for a wide range of stakeholders. But what we all know is that research without dissemination is not particularly useful. So we engage in a robust technology transfer mechanism whereby we highlight our findings through such traditional outlets as media press releases, two-page research briefs, in-person briefings, but we also have other areas that we advertise. So think social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, trying to make sure we reach the broadest audience possible. We know that the work is being picked up because, for one example, the Transportation Research Board has actually promoted 97% of our final reports in their weekly newsletter that is promoted to 40,000 individuals within the transportation sector. We have also delivered testimony to the California State Senate and the Assembly based on our research findings, and we've had the pleasure of presenting to this commission on multiple occasions as well. In terms of education, I know we've been talking about workforce development through some of these presentations. It's absolutely critical that we develop the next cohort of professionals who are going to lead this industry. So among our partners, we have undergraduate degrees as well as graduate degrees. But we realize that not everybody is going to set out for an education in a four-year institution. So to that end, we have developed a robust workforce development program. What is the need? We know that pre-COVID, that the U.S. Departments of Transportation, Labor, and Education jointly released a report that documented that shortage in the transportation pipeline, noting that approximately 417,000 jobs would need to be filled on an annual basis. That's due to people retiring, voluntary separation, and an aging workforce. About 53% of our current leaders in transportation could retire in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think we are very much competing with other sectors for qualified people. We have jobs everywhere from the front lines to the C-suite. In terms of workforce development, I'll be brief because I know our time is limited. We have developed a suite of opportunities from the K through 12 sector and beyond. So when you're talking elementary school students, you have to do some fun and exciting things. So we go into Title I schools where the majority of the student population qualify for free or reduced lunch. And we do such things as bridge building competitions with spaghetti. In fact, our second grade winners built a bridge that held an 8-pound weight. We also teach on grade crossing safety. Beyond that, we have a program for middle schoolers called the Garrett Morgan Sustainable Transportation Program. Thank you, Marlon, for always participating, and to Director Tokes Omi-Shapin, who very much supports this program on behalf of Caltrans as well. In brief, it's named after Garrett Morgan, who was the son of slaves with only an early childhood education, went on to become a trailblazing inventor, best known perhaps for the modern three-way traffic signal. This year, we had 9 schools competing from across the nation. What's unique, we put mentors into the virtual classroom with them to help develop these sustainable projects. So the kids are learning from another subject matter experts, being exposed to information they may have never had the pleasure of learning before. Beyond that, for the Summer Transportation Institute for high school students, this is a super cool program because it is totally free to the participant, and we choose 35 kids to come onto campus in a non-residential program, to take an environmental course from a San Jose State professor, and to go on 12 field trips, everywhere from the Mineta Airport to Tesla, to Google, to VTA, and beyond. This is so important because many of the participants have never set foot on a campus or been in an airport. They would be first-generation college students. At the end of their time in this program, they earn 3 units of fully transferable college credit, really opening that door and starting their path forward. If I may, advance to slide 4, please. Thank you. Now, for the purpose of today's presentation, I really wanted to highlight the 5 research projects we have funded in response to research needs submitted by the California Transportation Commission. Now, you can see their titles here on the slide. I don't need to read those, but I want to assure you that those are in process. And one of the ways that we ensure that we target the research just right is that we have a CTC staff member serve as an external advisor to the project team. And we also host FAQ sessions in advance of project selection to make sure that they're scoped correctly. Once a project is complete, it's peer reviewed by 2 academics and a practitioner to ensure methodological soundness, ease of reading, and just to make sure it's a top-notch and quality report. It's then professionally edited and formatted, and then we engage in that broad promotion I spoke of earlier, which includes the traditional and non-traditional outreach methods. We had 383 media articles documenting our researchers, our reports, and their success. So we have evidence that that dissemination method is working. We also do in-person briefings and technical advice, as I had mentioned. To that end, one example, on our recent COVID-19 virus transmission and mitigation work, we presented to the Santa Clara County Public Health Department and to VTA leadership. It was I want to go on because it's so exciting, but the time will limit me in telling you more details, but I do invite you to contact me if you'd like to learn more. Let's go on to slide 5 so we can talk about the few highlights in our research's impact. To date, as previously mentioned, we've engaged 57% of the campuses within the CSU system in this program. This was one of the goals of the chancellor, and I assure you that we are working hard to make sure that that knowledge is transferred to the faculty, staff, and students at all campuses. We have funded 130 research projects. Rather than putting those titles into a PowerPoint, we created a supplemental document that has been distributed to you as well, which lists the campus completing the work, a hyperlink to the project itself, and its status. That work has supported over 250 students. This is so important. We make sure that every project engages student research assistants. It's also engaged over 200 in faculty members, oftentimes leading them to discover very interesting research projects in transportation from their multidisciplinary perspective. In addition to our broad research portfolio, we have negotiated a CSU-UC partnership with the City and County Pavement Improvement Center, better known as CCPIC, which has trained more than 670 pavement professionals since we began partnering with them 2 years ago. Time limit, I think, precludes me from going on, but I would be delighted to answer questions, and I would like to just in summary, close out my comments by saying the wonderful thing about transportation is that it seriously touches all of our lives, whether it's food that we consume, devices we use to remain connected, or the mobility options that we select to move from destination to destination. It's a privilege to lead this consortium. We are always open to constructive feedback or ideas if you'd like us to do something different. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I know we have some desire for our commissioners to speak. I'd like to start with Commissioner Carl Gardino.
Oh, Carl.
Dr. Philbrook, thank you for the amazing work that you and your colleagues do at the Norman Y. Mineta Institute. It is truly important and often groundbreaking. I think it's annually that you also do research on U.S. citizens' views on transportation investment and a willingness to tax themselves to pay for those investments. With such an important year with the American Jobs Plan and the infrastructure bills that are making their way through the House and the Senate, are you doing that research again this year? And if so, when might it be available? And special points if you give us a sneak preview.
Okay, great question. Love that question. The answer is yes. We are continuing with that annual trend analysis that look at how Americans feel about transportation taxes and fees. In fact, we will be releasing the results of year 12 on June 11th in partnership with the Commonwealth Club of California, where we will feature a keynote speaker followed by a panel of experts talking about electrifying the transportation future. A sneak peek about some of the results. Yet again, year after year, we see that we receive a super majority level of support for an increase in taxes if it's linked with a very specific outcome. Safety improvements, for example. If you just say, will you support an increase? Guess what? Not so much. But will you support an increase if it reduces potholes, if it improves safety? The answer becomes yes. We'll be talking about that in more detail. The final report will be uploaded in approximately 2 weeks with a 2-page research brief for those who may not want to read a 200-page document. What's exciting about that work, Carl, is it's going to form the basis of a really great discussion among the panelists and the keynote who bring their own specific points of view and expertise. Incidentally, it'll be broadcast on NPR, 230 radio stations, and available for later download. 2 more facts about that report, if I may. Every year, the Washington Post picks up the results of this, broadly promotes them, and Senator Bell himself said he used some of the findings from that research to help compose Senate Bill 1. So we love to know when we're having an impact.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Philbrook.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. I had a question for you, and that is that in Transportation California's proposal for an additional $6 billion for transportation out of the surplus funds, $10 million is being requested for the ITS additional research to start asking and researching some questions, especially about the use of EVs, to look at how we are going to actually research some things that are still unknown about adoption rates, again, BMT reductions, and which are the best strategies to accomplish that. So I was just wondering whether or not, if this infusion of $10 million came, what the items are that you would use to prioritize research and work with the UCs and the CSUs to start looking at this broader body of data and information that we need, because it's a brave new world out there, and there are a lot of things that we don't yet have all the information on and are being asked to make policy knowing that we're going to get information in the future.
Yes, that's a great question. I will do my best to provide a succinct response, but let me start by saying that aligning decisions in dollars is always critically important, and sometimes the best way to do that is through sound objective research findings. So I do support additional funding for research to answer some of these questions, because oftentimes policy and technology and the rate of change are not always 100% congruent. I do know that was a request from the UCs, but the CSU is always happy to partner. We have shown a success in doing that, certainly through the County Pavement Improvement Center that I mentioned earlier. I think the first step is always really looking at what research is out there. As you may know, the Transportation Research Board has an international database where Caltrans, UTCs, other research centers, and our partners globally input what they're doing. Why? It allows us to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and to prevent duplication. It allows us to extend research findings because, for example, at our institute, we make the final data sets available to any researcher who wishes to look at it, expand on it, manipulate it, or use it. And so I think the first thing is also communicating to make sure that we get those research questions just right. And that's where it's so important to have CT staff and other stakeholders involved in that conversation.
That's great. Wonderful. Colleagues, do any of you have any other questions? I want to thank you, Dr. Philbrick, for your great presentation, and we look forward to finding out more about the June 11th release of the additional data. Thank you very much.
I will definitely share that. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Fabulous. Thanks again. With that, commissioners and public, we would like to go to our information calendar. And Tim Sobelman, would you present that information calendar to us today?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Norton. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Commissioners, items 27 through 49 are information items deemed acceptable and have no issues raised by staff. Therefore, individual items will not be presented unless specifically requested by a commissioner. Please note that item 41 was mistakenly listed on the agenda as an action item and will be corrected. No action will be taken for this item. Are there any questions? That concludes the presentation of the information calendar.
Thank you very much. Now could we move to the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Inman, and I would like to recuse myself from item 62 as I'm a trustee at the University of Redlands.
Okay. So that would be our consent calendar of items, let's see, 49 and beyond, taking out 62. Is that right, Casey?
Yes, sorry, I'm muted.
Wonderful. And since these are action items, can you just outline that it's which items we will be making a motion on to take all together?
Just item 62.
Okay, so we'll be voting on item 62 first. Could you present that item to us?
Yes. Tab 62 is an action item to amend the previously approved allocation amendment. The previously approved allocation. The original allocation was an error, and this correction is necessary to properly reflect it as a design-build project. In addition, they are correcting the completion of the project from 36 months to 50 months, as noted on the change list. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval.
Okay. There are no public comments on this item. Commissioners, would you like to make a motion?
Davis, move it.
Okay. You have a second?
Grisby seconds.
Thank you, Davis Gribsey. Could we have you read the roll, Douglas?
Thank you. Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager. Commissioner Eager. Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Inman, we can't hear you.
She recused herself.
Oh, thank you very much. My fault. Commissioner Kehoe. Commissioner Kehoe. Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Okay, can we get Commissioner Inman back in the room? Proverbial room. Thank you. Welcome back, Commissioner Inman. Tim, could you take the rest of the consent calendar for us?
Sure. Commissioners, items 50 through 61 and 63 through 69 are consent calendar items for a vote of approval. Please note changes to items 52, 60, and 61 on the change list. For item 60, 8 uncontested resolutions of necessity were withdrawn prior to the CTC meeting, and for item 61, 1 director's deed was withdrawn prior to the CTC meeting. With these changes, Commission staff recommends approval of items 50 through 61 and 63 through 69 on the consent calendar.
Okay. Could we get a motion to support?
Motion to
through 61?
Second the consent calendar as amended.
Okay. Douglas, did you get the mover and seconder?
I did not, I'm sorry. I got Commissioner Guardino as a second.
I think Commissioner Eager was the mover.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Mr. Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the items all passed.
Okay, thank you. We have noted on this that items 70 and 71 have been withdrawn, and so we are on item 72. Is Amy Choi ready to present, or should we move this to tomorrow?
So I am happy to note, Chair Norton, that Amy Choi is on the line. I will give a couple introductory remarks, and then we'll let her answer any questions.
Wonderful.
Okay. So Commissioners, tab 72 is an informational update on the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics draft 10-year capital improvement plan, which is a fiscally unconstrained listing of capital and planning projects at California's publicly owned and public use airports. The capital improvement plan is an element of the larger California Aviation System Plan, which, as you know, has undergone a substantive update and is now almost finalized. The capital improvement plan is required to be updated by Caltrans and approved by the Commission every 2 years. A request for the approval of the final 10-year capital improvement plan is scheduled to occur at the June Commission meeting. The capital improvement plan has been provided to you in the book, and if you have any questions about the draft plan, Aeronautics Division Chief Amy Choi is available to address them.
Okay, there's no public comment on this item. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I want to thank Ms. Choi for her meeting with myself and Commissioner Liu to ask some follow-up questions after presenting this the first time. So Commissioner Liu, do you have any follow-up questions to our meeting?
No, not at this time.
Okay. With that, I want to thank you because I see no other requests to speak. And I want to thank you, Ms. Choi, for being available today. And we look forward to the final capital improvement plan.
My pleasure, and thank you, Chair Norton.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks again. We are going to hear item 73, the HOV degradation and managed lanes tomorrow. So we will move to item 74, the approval for future consideration of funding. Jose Oseguera, great to see you.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. Item 74 is an action item. This is the final EIR for the Vine Transit Bus Maintenance Facility Project. The Napa Valley Transportation Authority Board of Directors adopted a statement of overriding considerations, finding that the benefits outweigh the impacts. Staff recommends your approval.
Wonderful. I see that there's no public comment on item 74. Commissioners, are you ready to make a motion?
Commissioner Eager so moves.
Thank you.
Martinez second.
Martinez seconds. Douglas, could you please do the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino. Commissioner Guardino?
Yeah, are you getting any of that?
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Guardino? We're not hearing you if you're speaking. Commissioner Inman?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Kehoe? Commissioner Liu? Commissioner Liu?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Kehoe, are you back on? She's having a connection issue.
Carl Guardino was having a connection issue as well. Aye. So
Thank you,
sorry.
thank you, Commissioner Guardino. Commissioner Martinez?
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni? Chair Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe, I see you look like you're back on. Maybe not. Madam Chair, the item is approved.
Okay, that's wonderful. Item 75, I know there's one element of the project.
Madam Chair, this is Chris. Could I be recorded on that vote? I was just trying to get my connection back.
Yes, thank you so much. Douglas, can we record Commissioner Kehoe as a vote yes?
Commissioner Kehoe, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Now we're on item 75. And John, can you tell us about the part of the project that's going to get pulled?
Yes. Yeah, so 75 and 76 are supposed to get taken together. So I'll do 75 and then I'll kick it to Tim for 76.
Right.
75 is an action item to approve amendments to the 2020 shop, and project number 20 on 2.1A, 1A has been withdrawn. So that's the one that's getting pulled from this. And that will be noted on the change list. With that change, these shop amendments will revise projects that are currently programmed in the 2020 shop, and will also add a total of 26 projects to the 2020 shop. And of those 26 projects, 19 of those are major damage restoration projects. 6 of them are safety projects, and 1 of them is a long lead mobility project. And I just want to highlight that one long lead mobility project. That's the I-5 managed lanes project that we've talked about for a couple meetings now, and we deferred it at the January meeting, and it's now getting funded at this meeting. So we're excited about that. The STIP funds came in. So with all of that, we reviewed all the amendments in this tab, and we find that they're consistent with the shop guidelines and with the asset management plan, and staff recommends approval of this item after Tim goes.
Wonderful. Tim?
Thanks, Chair Norton and John. Commissioners, item 76 is an action item to request an extension to the period of expenditure and completion of the project approval and environmental document phase for a roadway preservation shop project in Plumas County. Please note the description of this item is incorrect on the agenda and should refer to the expenditure and completion of P&ED. This will be fixed at the end of the meeting. The commission allocated P&ED for this project in March of 2018. In accordance with the shop guidelines, the deadline to complete the phase was March of 2021. Caltrans mistakenly thought the deadline was June 2021, and this was identified just prior to the May CTC meeting, where Caltrans was requesting a supplemental allocation to complete the P&ED phase. Due to the timing of this finding, Caltrans was not able to request a time extension during the May CTC meeting, and as such, the supplemental fund request was pulled from the March meeting and moved to the May meeting, so this post-fact time extension could be presented. The completion of the P&ED phase was delayed due to new information received as a result of a survey conducted which required improvements to an additional 32 horizontal and vertical curves, as well as determining the need to widen the shoulders from 4 to 8 feet. Therefore, Caltrans is requesting a 9-month post-back extension to the period of expenditure and completion for the P&ED phase. The Commission would like to ask Caltrans to describe the tools and practices that they use to track the timely use of funds. Is someone from Caltrans on the line?
We have James Anderson. Looks like he just turned on his mic.
Yes, hi. James is here, but I think if you give us a couple of minutes, there's someone, or a few seconds, there's someone from the district. The district director, District 2 director should be able to speak to this issue.
Okay.
Is that Dave Moore?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes, Dave, you are now muted and free to comment.
Hello, this is, commissioners and commission chair. This is Dave Moore. This is an unfortunate situation. We came in March and just wanted to share a little bit of some of the things we're doing. Our staff was, I'll say, a little bit unaware of the fact of the June. They were looking at when we started expenditures on the project. So we've done some education with our project managers. We've had several project management changeovers over the last couple of years with a lot of our key positions. We are also developing a tool to track timely use of funds as we educate our project managers on the requirements and clarify the requirements. And we're developing this tool so that we will have, besides the project managers individually reviewing their projects, this tool will flag timeframes as we're getting close and near those timeframes to make sure that we're staying within those timeframes. We also have a program coordinator who will be doing that independent review, reviewing those tools and working with the project managers to make sure that this does not happen. In addition, we are putting together a little fact sheet called a cheat sheet for the various programs, because the various programs do have different timelines. The STIP timeline is a little bit different than the SHOP. That cheat sheet will be provided for our staff so that they could have a quick reference to recognize what those important dates are.
Thank you very much for that explanation. We appreciate that you looked at how this will not be a precedent. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to explain that to us today. There's no public comment at this time. So I'd like to entertain a motion on 75 and 76.
So moved, Madam Chair. Commissioner Inman.
Second. Kehoe.
Thank you. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavoloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. And now, Tim, could you present items 77 and 78 together?
Yes, Commissioners, I'll be presenting items 77 and 78 with a recommendation at the end. Item 77 is an action item for an ADA project on US 101 in Santa Barbara County that is requesting an initial allocation that exceeds the program amount by more than 20%. Please note, the parenthetical listed on the agenda was removed and is identified on the change list. Commissioners, do you have any questions on this item?
No. And Justin, there is no public comment on this item?
There's no public comment at this time.
Thank you. Next.
Okay. Item 78 is an action item for a roadway rehabilitation project on US 101 in Santa Barbara County that is requesting an initial allocation that exceeds the programmed amount by more than 20%. Please note a pink replacement book item was submitted with more detail related to the proposed allocation request. This project is segment B of the Santa Barbara US 101 multimodal corridor project and is being combined for construction with the South Coast High Occupancy Vehicle Lane project, which is also asking for an initial allocation later in the agenda. The increase in both construction support and construction capital costs are due to the changes in stage construction, increased construction costs due to escalation in the material costs in the area. Increased concrete costs due to escalation in the material costs in the area, and the subcontractors' prices coming in higher than anticipated. Additionally, retaining wall lengths and heights were also changed to accommodate roadway profile adjustments on the US 101 main line. This in turn increased the aesthetic costs and concrete guardrail costs along the now longer wall. This project utilized a construction manager general contractor delivery method. The proposed allocation is a negotiated agreed to price based on recommendations from an independent cost estimator and several reconciliation meetings. The commission would like Caltrans to respond to a few questions on this project. And what I'll do is I will read them, and then if you need me to repeat them, I'd be glad to. I'm not sure who from District 5 is on the line to respond, but maybe we could get them available as I go through the questions. So the first question is, when utilizing the construction manager general contractor delivery method, there's an expectation of identifying efficiencies and project savings. With a significant increase in construction capital from the programmed amount, what benefits did Caltrans receive from using CMGC on this project? Second question, were there project changes during the design of the project that contributed the most to the increased project costs? Next question is, when comparing the engineer's estimate to the independent cost estimator's estimate and ultimately the agreed to price, can Caltrans explain the consideration process for whether or not this project should be advertised using traditional low bid methods or to continue with the CMGC contractor? And then lastly, when evaluating the increased costs, were the unit prices compared with those projects, those ongoing projects on either side of this segment, and how do they compare? So again, I'd be glad to repeat those for the district if I read those too quickly. Do we have someone on from District 5 to answer the questions?
Yes, we have Tim Gubbins on the line. Tim, you are free to unmute yourself and comment.
Okay, thank you. Am I coming through clearly?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, this is a very complicated explanation. I'm sorry that we're at the point where I have to do that. But as Mr. Sobelman said, this is a project utilizing a construction manager general contractor delivery method. And as such, we do identify efficiencies and savings. The savings aren't necessarily to individual unit prices. The savings we identify are by having the contractor help us with some of our different design and give us indications of how things will be built. For example, if I could give just a couple examples, this is the third segment of 101 that we are starting construction on. Based on finding unsuitable materials and needing to do things a different way, the contractor worked with design on our structural section. We reduced the amount of subbase that we would have to use, and we will put a geogrid down. So this reduces the amount of excavation we have to do, which reduces the amount of hauling and truck traffic, and actually reduce those type of items, reduce the cost from about 4 million down to 2. So that kind of savings was integrated as we go along, having them in. Also, the type of concrete we're using, the continually reinforced concrete. On the ramps, we decided that since the loading is so different, we could go with a more traditional method, again, with a savings of millions of dollars. So we do have significant increases based on the environmental factors that are happening around this, the price of everything going up, but we have achieved efficiencies, and we've recorded those in a checklist of that we do with the CMGC contractor. The next question that I captured was, were there project changes? And forgive me, Tim, I think I'll ask you on the last one, but I think I got the first three. Okay. Were there project changes during the design? And the answer to that is yes, and one of those definitely increased the cost that we had since our 60% or 90%. And the change there was the stage construction strategy. We were looking at doing a stage construction where we could have efficiencies in paving operations and other things, build the ultimate median barrier and have that inner lane paved. And that would give us kind of an express lane type of concept. But what we saw from the community on some of the other adjacent parcels and with the closures of adjacent ramps, we made the determination we could not keep up with that staging strategy. It would not be able to suffice with all those ramps. And so that was a very late change that happened during this fiscal year that we're in. So we're unable to bring that back for a change. There were other items with retaining walls similar to that. Okay, let me see. There was a question on the independent estimate versus the agreed to price. Was that your question, Tim?
Yeah, it was the question as it relates to the engineer's estimate, the independent cost estimator, as well as the agreed to price. And with the high increase, what was the process that went through when considering the traditional low bid method versus staying with CMGC?
Thank you. And for those of you unfamiliar with the CMGC process at the end to arrive at agreed price, Caltrans does our traditional engineer estimate. The contractor comes up with what his bid price would be, which his estimate. And we also hire, and Caltrans hires, an independent cost estimator. And they build an estimate up very similar to the way a contractor would build their prices. And so in this particular case, Caltrans used our traditional way of doing it, which left out a few factors that I think are good for us to see how the contractors do it. The first factor that we just have to make assumptions on are subcontractor prices. We just kind of plugged in the subcontractor prices from the adjacent ones, thinking, well, it hasn't been that long, we'll probably get very similar. I think Commissioner Inman may have mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, some of the subcontracting, only able to hold their prices for a matter of weeks. Things are changing weekly rather than, in more like seasonally. And so when we plugged in the actual estimates, that increased the contractor's price significantly, and the independent cost estimator was also taking that into account. Similarly, the price of concrete has gone up very, very significantly from the adjacent units. There's a lot, in general, material costs are going up, but very specific to this micro market, the availability of concrete is depleted by a few major projects also in the area, non-transportation. And so the contractor and our ICE included those. And so they were very close, just a few percentage apart, and Caltrans was much lower. And so when we looked at that, and then we went through negotiations, the contractor, we all basically came around to compare assumptions that go in. That's the process. And the contractor was able to lower their price from their initial much closer to what the ICE was. And so our estimate was unfortunately a little low. I think when the process for do we keep going with the CMGC or do we go out to bid, we were treating this very similarly to when we actually have gone out to bid and we have jobs or projects that open with a higher cost. We feel we've been told by the market with a lot better information than we had what it would really cost. We have two bids that are very close to each other. That led it, and then with the explanation behind it and being able to be part of the procurement for the subcontractors, we're able to see where those price differences really were. And did you have one more question, Tim? I'm not sure if I caught it.
I think you covered it when you were considering, the question was related to those adjacent segments that also utilize the CMGC process. The question was related to, did you utilize that information and how did they compare? And you did answer that question. The only part that is kind of an add-on question would be in regards to those subs that they're using. Are they the same exact subs that they've had for the other projects, or are they looking to also try and identify, subs that could be more competitively priced?
It was both. They contacted multiple subs for each item, and so we went out and procured bids from different subs, and some of them are the very same ones that are working. It's just there's a higher price for some of those, And some of the other new subs are also coming in at a higher level than the adjacents.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions from the commissioners, I can make a recommendation.
Please do.
So commission staff has reviewed items 77 and 78 and recommends approval.
Great. Could we entertain a motion for 77 and 78?
So moved, Madam Chair, from Commissioner Inman.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Eager.
Wonderful. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. And now, Tim, could we go to items 79 to 82?
Sure. I'll be presenting items 79 through 82 with a recommendation at the end. Item 79 is an action item for a bridge rail replacement project on State Route 1 in Mendocino County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the project approval and environmental document phase. Please note there's a correction to the county as identified on the change list. It should be Mendocino County. Commissioners, do you have any questions on this?
No. And Justin, are there any public comments?
There's no public comment at this time, Chair.
Thank you. On all of those items through 82, Tim.
Okay. Item 80 is an action item for a roadway rehabilitation project on State Route 70 in Plumas County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the project approval and environmental document phase. Please note there were slight corrections on this item as identified in the change list. And as you just mentioned, there are no comments or questions. Item 81 is an action item for an asset management pilot project on State Route 183 in Monterey County, requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the project approval and environmental document phase. Are there any questions? I'll take that as a no since I think you said that. And then item 82 is an action item for an asset management pilot project on various state routes in Santa Clara County, requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the plan specifications and estimate phase. Please note there was a date correction on this item as identified in the change list. Commission staff has reviewed items 79 through 82 and recommends approval.
Great.
So
Excellent.
moved. That was
Guardino.
Guardino. Yes, ma'am.
Second, Davis.
Great. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you so much. Next item 83, Tim.
Yes, Commissioners, item 83 is an action item for a safety improvement project on State Route 70 in Yuba County, requesting a supplemental allocation for right-of-way capital. The increase in right-of-way capital is needed due to increased utility relocation costs, most of which is related to a gas line relocation. The Commission has a few questions for Caltrans related to this gas line relocation, and I'm going to do the same as I did for the previous project. I have a number of questions, and I would be glad to go back and repeat them if I speak too quickly. And I believe Amarjeet Benapal would be on the line to answer the questions if we could help get him available.
We have unmuted the mic that he is on.
Thank you. Okay, so the questions that are all related to the gas line relocation are the following. When was the increase in cost identified? What was the original estimate and what was that based upon? What changed from the original estimate that caused the final cost to increase so significantly? And describe the engagement efforts with the utility company to initially estimate and then finalize the cost of the relocation. So again, I'd be glad to repeat those if you need me to.
Good afternoon, Chair.
I have a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure everybody else.
We do, yes.
Okay.
We have a significant echo on my end, so.
Emergy, you're going to need to make sure you're muted. Your speakers are muted. Your sound is off when you talk.
Can you hear me right now? Turn that one off.
Yes.
Yes, with no echo. But now we can't hear you at all.
Emergy, you briefly muted yourself, unmuted yourself, and then remuted yourself.
We've all done it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Both of you, yes. We'll just go for it.
Okay, I'm going to give it a try, even though I'm going to be hearing myself 5 times. That's how many times it's been bouncing on my end. So, good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Amarjeet Manipal, District 3 Director. So, Tim, I'm going to take it in the order of telling more of the story, and then if I did not answer any of your 4 questions, please repeat, and then I will answer those. From planning perspective, as all of you know, we develop the estimates working through our utility companies and our own team, and that process began.
Amarjeet, I hate to do this to you. I'm really struggling to hear.
Yeah.
Is there a different call-in that we could give him?
Can I call you on your cell number and then you can put me next to the mic?
I'd be glad to try that, sure.
Sure.
We have a bit of a reputation for this, so let's hope this one works again. Okay, I have you on speaker. Let's see if it's working.
Okay, we don't want to make this to be a practice.
I can hear you.
Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yep.
First of all, let me just walk you through a little bit more on the history, how we actually developed the estimate for this project.
You need to turn your mic off, Tim.
Except I'm actually feeding him through my computer. Let's see if I can.
Any better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So as we were developing the preliminary estimate for this project, we actually engaged the utility company's planning staff back in February of 2018. We actually have taken many field trips all the way through fall of 2018, and in April of 2019, through our conflict map determination, we were able to develop the estimate, which was based on our standard practices with the input from PG&E's planning staff. And that information was part of our baseline agreement, which was approved by the Commission at their June 2019 meeting. And as we have approved the environmental document, went into a detailed design phase. During that stage, we actually developed the conflicts, including the conflict with both PG&E's distribution and the transmission line, because this is the main corridor where majority of the utilities are within state highway footprint. And as we were developing those numbers, those were consistent with what we have seen on the previous project in this corridor. However, there was some uniquenesses as we got into further detail. There was an impact on the regulators and gas valves. And those facilities were not impacted by any other project which actually provide the distribution and the transmission lines to main agriculture businesses. And it was also not familiar to most of the PG&E's planning staff. When those conflict maps went to the design team at the utility company and their designers finalized their estimate in February of 2021, that's when the department was made aware of the change in the cost, including they took the latest estimating trends into their practice for developing those numbers.
When those numbers came to us, we were as surprised as their planning staff was. So we said this process is not sustainable. Even though this may be new, there are reasons we really need to look at this and lessons learned to be used for future practices so we can actually just share those across the state. And as a result, when we are going to be seeing something which is unique or different, PG&E's design team is going to be participating in the preliminary estimate rather than waiting till the final design and then developing the final estimates for the utility agreement. So that's the process which we are going to be setting forward as we work through this, and then future projects which are going to be coming through the pipeline. So hopefully, Tim, I covered your 4 questions, probably not in the order you were asking. But back to, if I remember, your first question was when were we made aware of this change? That was in February of this year.
Yeah, that was one of the questions. The other was in regards to also what would the original estimate then and what really caused the increase to go so significantly. I think you covered my questions. I think my last question would be, what is Caltrans doing to share that information and then also look at other projects that might be in the area that will also be impacted?
First of all, from the lessons learned perspective, we will be sharing that across the state through our right-of-way management board, so we can at least build that into our future decision-making process. Secondly, we already have done the assessment of all of the project and the scope to make sure if similar kind of facilities are going to be impacted, that we actually take those numbers into account and then be more proactive about dealing with those changes right now.
Are there any projects that you identified that will need further actions?
At this point, based on that assessment, we do not see that.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Amarjeet. Do we have any other questions or comments from the commission?
No, and no public comment either.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Davis, I'd like to recognize you.
Oh.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. I just want to make sure I understood that. So PG&E is committed to trying to be a better partner earlier on in this process moving forward?
Commissioner Davis, that's the agreement with the PG&E leadership.
Okay, thank you. I know that they can be challenging.
They certainly are, but we wanted to be good partners with them.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. With that, would anyone like to make a motion on item 83?
I would make it, Commissioner Davis.
Second by Kehoe.
Thanks, Amarjeet.
Okay, thank you. And Tim?
Down the line, if you need to stay me active for 84 as well.
I'll keep on the line, but you won't need to.
Thank you.
So Tim, before we call the roll, just could you repeat your recommendation for us?
Absolutely. Commission staff has reviewed this item and recommends approval.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavoloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. Now we're on item 84. Tim?
Thank you. Item 84 is an action item for a pavement rehabilitation project on Interstate 80 in Sacramento County, requesting a supplemental allocation to close out construction. Please note there is a pink replacement book item that provided additional detail and corrected the requested amount to be 10 million and not 13 million. The increase in construction capital is being requested to pay an award against the department after 2 contractor claims went through arbitration. Commission staff has reviewed this item and recommends approval.
Okay. Seeing that there is no public comment on 83 or 84, could we make a motion?
So moved by Kehoe.
Thank you.
Second by Eager.
Thank you. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to take items 85 through 87 together. Teresa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Agenda items 85, 86, and 87 are all STIP amendments for notice. Under agenda item 85, this is a request to add 14 new projects and increase funding to 21 projects as a result of the funding made available to the STIP from the COVID relief funds. You know, I'm happy to report that the agencies are putting these funds to work. The various agencies listed on the attachment provided all the required information to add or augment projects to the STIP for this notice as required by statute. The list will be coming back in June for approval of the requests. Agenda item 86 is also an information item. This is another STIP amendment for notice. The Alameda County Transportation Commission proposes to add a new project, the I-680 southbound express lane from State Route 84 to Acosta Boulevard project in Alameda County. They are proposing to program $40 million to the construction phase for this project in fiscal year 21-22. We do have a concern, however, with this request. Alameda does not have the programming capacity through unprogrammed shares to be able to add this project. Programming a project greater than the amount of available shares outside the STIP adoption is not consistent with STIP guidelines. We will work with Alameda MTC to find a viable funding plan. Again, this is just for notice, and they will be coming back in June for action. Agenda item 87 is also an information item. This is a STIP amendment for notice. The Department of Transportation proposes to add the Coast Subdivision Positive Train Control implementation project to various segments of Union Pacific Railroad's Coast Subdivision located in various counties. The department proposes to add $15.637 million to the construction phase from the interregional shares, the rail reserve. In order to program the project, we need an adequate project study report or equivalent. We have not received this report. We will work with the department to get this prior to the June commission meeting. Again, these three items are just for notice. They will all be coming back in June for action. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We have a public comment on item 87. Justin?
Thank you, Chair Norton. We have one written comment at this time on item 87. It comes from Christina Watson. She writes, Transportation Agency for Monterey County is in support. Thank you.
Oh, hot diggity. All right, so we will now, those don't require a motion, so we'll now move to item 88. Matthew.
Thank you, Chair Norton, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Tab 88 is an action item to approve a Cycle 1 Solutions for Congested Corridors Program project amendment to update the funding plan for the Santa Barbara Multimodal Corridor South Coast 101 High Occupancy Vehicle Padero Segment 4B, the North Padero Lane Coastal Access Improvement, and the Santa Claus Lane Class 1 Bikeway projects in Santa Barbara County. This request is consistent with the Solutions for Congested Corridors program and its guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends your approval of tab 88.
Thank you. There is no public comment on this item, so could we entertain a motion?
So moved. Kehoe.
Second, Eager.
Great. Thank you. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you so much, Douglas. Now we are on item 89, Lori Waters.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Commissioners, tab 89 is an action item to consider a scope amendment for the City of Stockton's Safe Routes to School Safety and Connectivity Improvements Project in San Joaquin County. This project was programmed in Cycle 4 of the Active Transportation Program for approximately $2.8 million in ATP funds. The scope of this project is to improve safety and connectivity to 6 schools by constructing bike lanes, installing missing sidewalk segments, constructing high visibility crosswalks, flashing beacons, curb ramps, safety medians, pedestrian refuges, and traffic circles. As design progressed, the city found some areas that they needed to refine the scope for a better project. All the specific changes are listed in the attachment to the book item. The individual changes are all fairly minor, but because there's a lot of them, commission staff and Caltrans decided it should be considered a major scope change and brought forward for consideration at this meeting. The changes to the scope will also increase the project cost by about $2.5 million, but the city is dealing with the cost increase by transferring some elements to other projects and covering the increased costs themselves with other funds. While some of the ATP scope is being done through other projects, the city will still be required to report on the full ATP scope as submitted in the application. Caltrans performed an engineering assessment of the updated scope and has determined that the changes will result in an increase to the overall active transportation benefits of the project as compared to the original scope. Commission staff agrees with this assessment and believes that the updated scope fulfills the intent of the original project submitted by the city. Staff recommends supporting the scope amendment to the City of Stockton Safe Routes to School Safety and Connectivity Improvements Project in San Joaquin County.
Thank you so much for that very thorough presentation. We have no public comment on 89, so could we entertain a motion?
So moved. Kehoe.
Thank you, Commissioner Kehoe. Do we have a second?
Grigsby seconds.
Excellent. Douglas, can you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado, Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Grigsby,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you. Now we'll take items 90 and 91 together. Anya?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Tabs 90 and 91 are action items for the Local Partnership Formulaic Program. Tab 90 is an action item to amend the 2020 Local Partnership Formulaic Funding Distribution to add formulaic funding for the City of El Paso de Robles, totaling $200,000 in fiscal year 2021, $200,000 in fiscal year 21-22, and $200,000 in fiscal year 22-23. The City of El Paso de Robles informed Commission staff of their voter-approved 12-year 1/2 cents sales tax measure earlier this year, and Commission staff verified eligibility and established the funding amount. The city's measures became effective April 1st, 2013. Therefore, staff is recommending adding funding distribution amounts for all 3 years of the 2020 Local Partnership Formulaic Program. Tab 91 is an action item to amend the Local Partnership Formulaic Program. Specifically, this amendment will add 7 projects: the Golden State Boulevard project in Fresno County, the Marin-Sonoma Narrows Contract B7 project in Marin County, the Soscol Junction project in Napa County, the Western Addition Area Traffic Signal Upgrades Project in San Francisco County, the Traffic Signal Upgrade Contract 36 Project in San Francisco County, the 13th Street Safety Project in San Francisco County, and the 5th Street Improvement Project, also in San Francisco County. In addition, we're asking to amend the scope and funding for the GALT 2021 Pavement Rehabilitation Project in Sacramento County. So staff has reviewed these items. They are consistent with the local partnership program guidelines. I wanted to also just give a really quick update to what was written in the book item. It was noted that 3 agencies still need to submit project nominations for their 2019 formulaic funds, and I wanted to update you commissioners that we have received project nominations for all of the 2019 formulaic funds, so I'm happy to report that. With that, staff is recommending approval of tabs 90 and 91.
Oh, that's very good news. Thank you. We have no requests for public comment nor speakers from the commission. So could we entertain a motion?
Commissioner Eager moves.
Okay, Lou and Eager. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Fantastic. Okay, we are now at items 92 through 97, which will be taken together. John Prey.
Yes. So they're all 92 through 97 are all for shop allocations. Item 92 is an action item to allocate 2 shop minor program projects in accordance with the shop guidelines and the minor program resolution. The minor resolution requires that any minor A project that's not on the minor list at the beginning of the year come to the commission for an individual vote. And if they have cost increases beyond a certain amount, that also has to come to an individual vote. So that's why these 2 are here. The requested allocation amount for the 2 projects is $2,568,000. And then item number 93 is an action item for shop construction allocations. Please note that projects 7 and 22 have been withdrawn from this request. With that change, this item will allocate approximately $187 million for 20 shop projects. And these 20 shop projects will improve 14 bridges, 42 lane miles of pavement, 9 culverts, 79 TMS elements, and many other important safety, stormwater, emergency types of improvements. And then item number 94 is an action item to allocate $37,250,000 in construction funds for a shop pavement rehabilitation project on State Route 67 in San Diego County. As noted on the change list, there was a replacement book item that was posted and distributed on May 7th. This project will rehabilitate 50 lane miles of pavement, upgrade culvert and guardrail, upgrade facilities to ADA standards, and install fiber optics as well as conduits for future broadband service. The conduits for the future broadband service are not shop eligible items of work, and therefore Sandag has agreed to partner with Caltrans to provide approximately $2.7 million in funding for this work to be included in this shop project. Sandag and Caltrans have drafted a project implementation order for this funding contribution, but it will not be approved by Sandag's board until tomorrow. Sandag staff is confident that the agreement will be approved by their board, and Sandag has also provided us a letter of commitment to that effect. So as a result of that, I'll make the recommendation for all these items at the end, but we would like to add 2 conditions. Staff would like to add 2 conditions to this allocation for 94. And the first condition would be that condition 1 would be that Sandag's board approve and execute the project implementation order by tomorrow, or day after tomorrow, I guess, which is Friday, the May 14th. And condition 2 is that any cost increases related to the shared work will be split proportionally so that the shop is not covering cost increases for non-shop work. So those are the 2 conditions we would like to add to the recommendation there. I can go on. Commissioner Kehoe, would you like to, did you have a comment before I go on?
Yes, thanks to John and to the chair. This $5 million extra, which Sandag is covering half of it, is admittedly a new addition, but it's what we should be doing. It totally aligns with our Dig Once policy. It's bringing broadband and reducing the digital divide in an area that's partially rural and underserved in those in the fiber optics infrastructure. And I think it's also another way to enhance our connected cars on smart highways. And it literally is the wave of the future. So I think it's very important. I really appreciate staff being flexible about the Sandag vote. Sandag, Caltrans, and I have been in contact, 3 times since last Friday. So I think everyone's fairly confident that the vote will be positive. So I'd like to make the motion whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
That's great. We just need to go through with this, because this is 94, we need to go through 95 through 97, and then I'd love it if you made the motion.
Understood. Thank you.
Perfect. I wanted to take the comment before we confused it with my comments on all the other projects. So thank you, Commissioner Kehoe. Okay, 95 is an action item for shop pre-construction support allocations. This item will allocate approximately $57 million for 38 shop pre-construction phases for P&ED, PS&E, and right-of-way support. And then 96 is an action item for advanced shop construction allocations. So this item will allocate approximately $7 million for 3 shop projects which are programmed in the 21-22 fiscal year, which is next fiscal year. These 3 projects will improve 4 bridges and make other operational and emergency improvements. And then the last one in this group, item 97, it's an action item to allocate $15,900,000 in right-of-way capital for a shop roadway rehabilitation project on State Route 119 in Kern County. Please note the changes on the change list that are making technical corrections to the project outputs. And as a reminder, the CTC resolution G1901 requires projects with right-of-way capital of $10 million or more to receive an individual allocation. So that's why we're seeing this right-of-way capital allocation. These funds are programmed for fiscal year 23-24, but the funds are needed now to begin right-of-way acquisition. So staff has reviewed all of these shop allocations in items 92 through 97, and with those 2 conditions that were referenced before for item 94, staff recommends approval of all of these items.
Thank you so much. There's no public comment on 93 through 97 and no other people who wish to speak. So Commissioner Kehoe.
So moved, Madam Chair, all the items.
Second for all the items with a compliment to John Prey for really making it directly linked to ways that it benefits the public. John, you were trying to get a word in there, so I will hold off.
Hey, I didn't know I was cutting off a compliment to me. Thank you.
You're young.
I heard the chair say 93 through 97. I just want to confirm that we're taking a vote on 92 through 97.
Thank you. Thank you. That's right. I was looking at Justin's statement about where we were on no public comment, 92 through 97. So Commissioner Kehoe, your motion is for 92 through 97?
So moved, yes.
Okay. And Commissioner Gardino, your second is for 92 through 97?
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you for the correction, John. Appreciate it. And with that, Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion is approved.
Fantastic. So we are now at the end of our agenda, and I want to take a little bit of time for our first day. So I want to thank you. We will come back to our second day with the following items that we will take up. First, we are going to take up the Self-Help Counties Coalition Executive Director Keith Dunn's report. Next, we are going to take up item 73, which is the HOV degradation and managed lanes. And then we will take up items 98 through the balance of the agenda, which is 148 items. And then we will be adjourning tomorrow on behalf of the Caltrans workers that have been killed on the job, and those fallen workers. We want to honor them as we had promised Director Omashakin. So thank you very much for this day. And with that, I would like to get us to our adjourning item. Thank you. It is very difficult for me to adjourn in memory of Professor Marty Wax. It's with great sadness and respect that we adjourn our meeting today in memory of Dr. Marty Wax. We are deeply saddened by the passing of Dr. Wax on April 12th. Dr. Wax was a distinguished professor of urban planning at the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs and a world-class scholar and expert in the field of transportation planning. He served on the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee for over 6 years and helped write a number of research reports used by the committee. He also led a policy work group to help develop the 2017 Road Charge pilot, and which remains one of the largest road charge pilots in the nation. Throughout his professional career, Dr. Wax authored more than 160 articles and 5 books on transportation systems, performance measurement, and transportation planning. Dr. Wax also studied the mobility needs of older adults, research that led to winning the Transportation Research Board's Pike Johnson Award for Outstanding Paper in Transportation Planning. He won this award twice, in 1976 and 2019, a 43-year span. On a personal level, Marty Wax is one of the people I admired most in Los Angeles. I revered Marty as one of the many geniuses that wrote the RAND report, Moving Los Angeles, which became the foundation set of recommendations for the nonprofit that I became the executive director for, Fixing Angelenos Stuck in Traffic Fast, chaired by Jim Thomas, an impressive and determined board of directors. Marty was instrumental in helping implement some of the report's key recommendations, such as the Metro Express lanes and Silver Line, the Wilshire Bus Rapid Transit District, congestion pricing, a robust bus network for Los Angeles County, and so much more. And was in the middle of working on congestion pricing as it relates to not only Metro, but throughout the state and really around the world. Marty was generous with his time and his brilliance and was ever hopeful for the mobility vision we all aspire to see fully implemented in California and Los Angeles. So much of California's transportation policy is shaped by his research and advocacy and by the many people like myself who learned so much from him over our many years of working together. What is hard for me is I am saying this while I am facing this photo of Dr. Marty Wax, and the look on his face in this photo is the look he had as he was listening to the powerful and the powerless with the same rapt attention and thoughtful response. We've lost a legendary talent in Dr. Marty Wax, and I will miss him greatly. And I would like to open the floor to any of you who are also affected by his talent and devotion to transportation policy. Commissioner Inman.
Thank you, Chair Norton. I look at that wonderful photo of Marty and think of all the times when we would sit with him and put forward an idea, and he would patiently explain to us all the different things we should consider and help us all learn and be better in our ability to serve. So to his family, I just want to say that there was a lot of love for Marty across so many of us. So just want you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to say, I believe Dr. Wax's family is listening to this and was so generous in how they shared his funeral services and even a post event with us, because there were so many people from around the world who wanted to tell them how much Dr. Wax affected them and their own scholarship and just life work in transportation. Are there any other commissioners? Thank you so much, Commissioner Inman. And it was so great working with Dr. Wax and you on the express lanes in Los Angeles, especially. Commissioner Gardino.
Thank you, Chair Norton, and such fitting tributes to an amazing professional and an amazing person. I remember helping to lead the anti-Prop 6 campaign to preserve Senate Bill 1 for the 9-county Bay Area, and that included being the debate person for the anti-Prop 6 campaign on numerous radio and television shows, and on one NPR appearance against the lead proponents for Prop 6 against Senate Bill 1. It was me against that person, and then Marty Wax was the third person, just to provide that extra level of objective transportation knowledge. And he was such a gentleman the entire hour to help correct to help correct facts. And he did it with such professionalism and dignity and patience. It was just who he was, to never put others down, to bring up the point he was trying to make. And he will be sorely missed, but deeply appreciated for how I think he mentored us all up as transportation professionals solely through his example and his integrity.
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Gardino. Are there others who wish to speak today? Well, seeing none, we'll save the other adjourning motions for tomorrow. But I just want to thank you all for the ways in which you all wanted to honor him today. And again, you will be sorely missed, Professor Wax, and thank you for your contributions to transportation. With that, our meeting is adjourned.